Welcome to the Bite-Sized Security Podcast, your source for practical online security advice. Join me, my guests, and sometimes my trained AI voice as I explore ways to protect your digital footprint against the growing cyber threats. From mastering better passwords to understanding encryption and VPNs, the Bite-Sized Security Podcast breaks complex topics into clear guidance. It's time to take control of your online presence. You're listening to the Bite-Sized Security Podcast, unlocking solutions for your digital life. Let's get to it. With all the crazy things that are going on out there, your data is all over the internet. Most recently, there were 2.9 billion Social Security records breached. And who knows if they're on the dark web or not. I'm sure that they are, and I'm sure that your number's been out there previously. You take a Social Security number with birthday and social media profiles and all the information on where you've lived and who you're associated with, and you can create a pretty good dossier of who the person is and start getting some more coveted information. Access to email with password breaches, all kinds of things. Social Security, tax information, like, putting on a refund for somebody's taxes. And at some point you're thinking, well, I've got a password manager. I've got 2FA. I've got all these things, and that's great. You're doing everything. If you're doing that, you're doing everything that you can to secure your data in the best way that you know how, and that's using all the tools that are available to you, and that's great. And then you rely on the company that's storing that data to do the right thing. And of course, it doesn't matter how secure your password is and 2FA and everything else. If the company that's storing your data gets breached and that stuff gets out there you go, right? So what can you do? Well, you can't do a lot about companies being breached. There's only a couple of ways you could think about this. One, just assume a breached mentality. Everything that I put on the internet when I'm signing up for a service is going to be breached. It's going to get out there. So what kind of information do I want out there? Do I really want to use my real name, my real address, and all this kind of stuff? Now, for government sites, you're going to have to do that. But for other sites like shopping and things, you don't have to do that. You can use different PO boxes. You can use a different name associated with your address so that it gets more confusing to these data broker sites. They don't really know who lives there because there's maybe 10 people that live there. But let's say you don't want to do that. That's taking it more privacy-minded, more extreme. A lot of people like to do that, me included, and that's perfectly fine. But let's say you don't want to do that. What can you do? Well, the first thing you can do is, and I'm going to list this in the show notes, is a site called operationprivacy.com. operationprivacy.com. And you'll be able to do most everything on there for free. And there is a sort of an extreme subscription, which is $9 a year. And that's, for serious people, anonymizing utilities, planting your flag, all these hardcore concepts. But for the more conscious-minded person, the person who wants to remove themselves from data brokers and the big sites, it'll be free. It's crowdsourced, it's self-managed, there's a bunch of tasks, you get a privacy score, it's proactive monitoring, it's private and secure, they don't store any information about you, you can read the blog or the FAQ and their transparency. And the reason that I'm telling you about this is you're going to hear a lot of sites like Delete Me or OneRep and all these other places that are going to charge you to basically do the same thing. Go out there, scour the main places where your data is stored on these broker sites and real estate and whatever, and attempt to remove you. They'll go to the source and they'll put in a request and they'll try to get you removed from there. And when you start getting removed from these main data brokers and opt-out lists, you're going to notice that you're going to just start disappearing from all the smaller ones too. That's usually how it works, right? If you got a website and it doesn't exist in Google, then pretty much it doesn't exist anywhere else. Now, it's not 100% true, but for the most part, if you can get yourself off the main data broker, data retrieval sites, you'll start to disappear pretty much everywhere else. And why would you want to do that? Well, there's a number of reasons. Maybe you're a more privacy conscious person. Maybe maybe you've had problems with stalkers. Maybe you just don't want where you live and your address and all your phone numbers and everything else out there and how much you make and all these weird things. Maybe you just don't want that out there anymore. Maybe you don't want to be that low-hanging fruit that actually gets picked off because someone knows enough information about you to do something with it. So you could go over to operationprivacy.com. You can sign up with whatever username, with whatever password you want, put 2FA on it. You don't need to subscribe with an email address or anything unless you want notifications. Otherwise, you can just log in the dashboard. And I know it's a little confusing, and it will be, because it's not a service that's being, offered to you at a price where they've got a team and a crew doing all this stuff. But it's relatively self-explanatory once you start clicking around. And all your main goal is go to these different sites, go to the opt-out links, and find your information on those sites if they exist, and then put in a request to opt out and remove it from those sites. So that's Operation Privacy in a nutshell. I've done some videos on this before, sort of tutorials, how to use the site, but it's not going to cost you anything. Most of the other sites that will do this type of work for you, it's about $129 for an individual per year. And you're always going to be popping up on stuff, right? So just because you've removed yourself from a data broker doesn't mean you're never, ever going to appear there again. That's just simply not true. So Operation Privacy is a great place to start if you're into self-managed, task-oriented, and you want to do it yourself. And I think that, to be honest with you, you should take that route so you have more control of what goes on. There's no rush to remove yourself, but it gives you a really good idea of, hey, where am I out there on these different sites, on the internet? What information do they have on me? And can I opt out of this and get out of this kind of stuff? So it's kind of good to do it yourself. There's no rush. It's tedious. It takes a while. And that's why it's sort of self-managed. And you've got a nice dashboard. So you can just slowly go through over time. And I will say, after doing this myself, that once you've gone through the major sites at least once, all the major ones, you just pretty much disappear. And occasionally you'll pop up somewhere, but you can remove yourself quickly and easily and you're gone again. So it's not a big deal. The second place I want to tell you about is Google came up with this thing. I'm not sure when, but it's called Google Results About You. I know, Google, evil, right? Look, if you've got a Google account, you should use this. If you don't have a Google account, good for you. Maybe you could create a sock puppet, like a fake Google account, just to use their search engine to find out what do they know about you, like they're looking on their search engine for criteria that you put in, and then telling you where on the internet it found it, and would you like Google to remove you from those results? In addition, you can actually know where the source is, and you can try to remove yourself from the source as well. And that site is myactivity.google.com. Again, myactivity.google.com. You will have to have an account in order to log into that. Free account, of course, but you do have to have something associated with Google in order to log into it. Once you do that, it doesn't cost anything. You're going to see the settings, and that's just notifications and add some names that someone might be used to find your contact info, like a maiden name or a nickname. And then you can add personal information, like, include any current or past addresses, add any phone numbers in there, current phone numbers, including area codes associated with you, and then any email that's associated with you, current or past. And what that eventually does is Google goes out every day and it checks for those things that you've said, and if it finds something that matches it or very closely matches it, it will pull up in the all requests that it's found something about you. You can take a look at where it has found you. It gives you the source, the information of where this was found, and then you can remove it from the source if you want it to, or you could just ask Google to remove it from their search engine. And if it's not on their search engine, chances are it'll start getting removed from others, because a lot of other search engines just subscribe to what Google has. So that would be the easiest way. Get yourself out of the search engine. That would be an easy way to do it. But they do give you where they found it in the source. And then, just like Operation Privacy, you could dig down into the source and see if you can remove yourself from there. And again, these are two very useful, very free resources to see what's out there. Now, if you want, there's no limit. So you could put in other information if you're doing this for a spouse or somebody else. Maybe you have a Google account, but your spouse doesn't or your child doesn't. Then you could add in information about them as well and see, hey, is Google finding anything on these people? And then attempt to remove them from there as well. So it's a nice way to keep track of what results did it find, what have you reviewed, what's in progress, what's approved, what was denied, and all your requests, whether they're done, been approved or not. You could always go out and search for this kind of stuff, set up alerts in Google to do the same exact type of thing. But what they've done is made it into a really nice dashboard that's easy to find and then easy to remove yourself from those search engines as well. So between Operation Privacy and Google results about you, you really will have a handle on that information that you need in order to remove yourself. Now, what's that last final step that everybody talks about? It's freezing your credit, right? If you want to go ahead and actually freeze your credit, that's super simple and easy to do. You're going to find that at Operation Privacy. They will give you the information on where to specifically go in order to freeze your credit. I'll put the links in the show notes. But if you can get yourself off of Experian and TransUnion and those type of places, those data brokers, you will freeze your credit, meaning you're going to get an additional PIN number that only you will have. And so if someone were to have enough information to pull your credit or put in a credit request on you to get a credit card, that credit agency doesn't provide that entity requesting anything back. And so that entity isn't able to open the credit card. And they're going to want you to unfreeze it. Well, if it's really you, then you're going to know how to unfreeze it because you've got the PIN and the site to go do it from the credit brokers. If it's not you, then they can't unfreeze it because they don't have that additional PIN that's required beyond all the information they already do have on you to do it. So freezing your credit is like, you just got to do it. I'm sorry, it's free, it's easy, there's 3 sites, you're done, it's not that big of a deal. People, in the past, I think it was more of a big deal because, it took a lot longer to do. They would charge you $10 to go ahead and do that, and then it would charge you more money to, undo it and things like that. But that's not the case anymore. So if you're out of Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, you get yourself out of those, you freeze your credit on those, you really are going to be in pretty good shape. Now, if you're thinking, yeah, but I rotate credit cards a lot, or I want offers. There's a credit card offer I really want to take, and I can't apply online. It won't let me do it. That's totally true. But if you've applied online during that deadline, you'll either get an email or most likely an actual physical letter to your house saying that they weren't able to unfreeze your credit. Call this number. Once you unfreeze the credit in whatever credit bureau they're trying to do, just temporarily even, just very quickly over the phone, then you can go ahead and get whatever credit card you want. And I've done that before where I thought I was going to miss out on a particular offer. And that's actually not true because I applied for the offer online during the deadline period. I was still eligible even though it wasn't able to actually authorize me online. I got a letter about 4 days later. I called the number. I unfroze what they wanted while they were on the phone. They looked it up and said, you're good to go. I got that credit card and that offer. No big deal. It just took a little bit extra time, but you still qualify for all those type of things because you did it during the time period. So if you're someone who, instant gratification, I need to know immediately and I want to do it online, well, you could go unfreeze your credit at those 3 bureaus because you don't know what it is and then do it that way. Or you could simply just apply and wait for the letter, call the number, and do it that way. It's up to you. But between those two, operationprivacy.com and myactivity.google.com, you will have a really good way to figure out what is out there on the internet about me, phone numbers, addresses, places I've lived, things like that. And then how can I remove them from the search engine? And further, how can I remove it from the source? Because if it's not at the source, then it's not likely to get back into the search engines. That is what people are trying to say for you to do at this point. It doesn't take a lot of technical ability to do this. It's just simply going to a couple of websites and just start scouring around and seeing what's out there about yourself and removing yourself. It's, if nothing else, it's more time consuming and tedious to do that. But there really is no excuse not to do it. It's getting worse. You know that. It's been getting worse this whole time. It just is, and it always will. And all the people who are low-hanging fruit, their kids are going to get, credit reports pulled on them, right? They don't really have a credit history. But if you can start out with the basic credit card with information on a child, and now you've got a credit card in their name, right? You're going to fly under that parent's radar for like 18 years before they realize, hey, let's open some credit for you, and then realize that their kid has had credit outstanding for the last 15 years and it's not good. It does happen. It does. And that's not something that you want to see happen to anybody that you care about. So take it to heart. Go check out those sites. Go see what information is out there about you and remove yourself from these places and freeze your credit. It's simple. It's easy. I'll put everything in the show notes for you, what links to go to. Save your pins. You can unfreeze it anytime. It doesn't matter. You can temporarily do it for a period of days, hours, whatever, and then it will auto freeze back for you. And when you do that, you have literally removed yourself from being that low-hanging fruit of getting identity theft. And identity theft is not fun. It's painful. And the people I know that have happened to is a very long process, and it's not something you want to go through when it's easily avoidable. So password managers, right? 2FA on accounts, freezing your credit, removing yourself from data brokers. You are going to be in really, really good shape going forward. Nothing's guaranteed, but you're going to be in a lot better shape than most people out there. And unless you're a target where someone actually really, really wants to go after you, most likely they'll move on to somebody else. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. Drop a note. You can email me. You can drop a note or send us a review. That would be even more helpful. Thanks for listening to another episode of Bite Size Security, the quick-hitting podcast serving bite-sized tips to boost your online safety. We covered a lot of ground today and easy-to-digest nuggets of practical cybersecurity advice. If you want to learn more ways to protect your data and identity online, be sure to subscribe for future episodes. We'll continue breaking down complex security topics into straightforward guidance anyone can apply. Visit our website, bitesizesecurity.show, for recaps and show notes from all of our podcasts. We hope these bite-sized cyber lessons have given you new tools in your digital security toolbox. This is your host signing off until next time. Stay safe in the digital world. You've been listening to Bite Size Security.